How China's $285 million export hub in Brazil will cost the US billions. The United States is about to lose billions of dollars worth of business to Brazil because of a massive new development. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode. I bring you the latest news on international relations, economics, and diplomacy. And today we're gonna be talking about how the United States is about to lose billions of dollars in agricultural sales to Brazil because of a $285 million investment that China is making into the country. Now, this story is not over-exaggerated, and I am gonna prove it to you with some numbers at the end of this episode. But first, let me give you some background and context. A few years ago, Chinese state-owned conglomerate China COFCO announced that it would be developing a $285 million export terminal near the Brazilian city of São Paulo, one of the largest outside of China. Well, the reason why this is important is because COFCO is China's largest agricultural company, specializing in the production, processing, and distribution of grains, oil crops, and protein meals. This $285 million export hub is going to have a significant impact on the flow of agricultural products between Brazil and China and is expected to cost the United States billions of dollars over the coming years. Now, before we get into the details of this story, please make sure you support us by leaving a like on the video. And if you're interested in this kind of content, then consider subscribing so you don't miss out on any future episodes. So here's the thing. China has always been one of the largest markets for American agricultural products, spending hundreds of billions of dollars over the past decade. According to the USDA, China was the #1 destination for US agricultural exports in 2022, accounting for 23% of total US agricultural exports, which totaled more than $170 billion. Corn, soybeans, wheat, and poultry are among the top commodities exported to China from the United States. However, the relationship between China and the United States has become increasingly strained in recent years. And when the US introduced tariffs on hundreds of billions of dollars worth of Chinese imports in 2018, it temporarily slowed down trade between the two countries. But China's demand for US agricultural goods rebounded quickly. For example, in 2020, soybean purchases hit a record high of $36 billion despite the ongoing trade war. However, this surge in demand didn't last long as the trade war escalated and Chinese buyers began looking for alternative suppliers. In fact, Brazil has emerged as the leading food supplier to China, surpassing the United States for the first time in 2021, according to the Observatory of Economic Complexity. Brazil exported $44 billion worth of food products to China, compared to the United States' $41 billion. Soybeans, corn, beef, and chicken are among the top food products exported by Brazil to China, and the numbers just keep getting better and better for Brazil. In 2023, Brazilian agricultural exports to China reached a record $60 billion. According to official data released by the Brazilian Ministry of Agriculture, that's nearly double the amount in 2016. The increase was mainly driven by higher exports of soybeans, which accounted for nearly half of total agricultural exports to China. This trend is likely to continue in 2024 as Brazil's main port, the Port of Santos, handled a record 180 million tons of cargo in 2024. Up from 170 million tons in 2023, according to the Port Authority. This increase was driven by a surge in exports, particularly soybeans, which accounted for more than half of total cargo exports. And this is where the $285 million export hub comes in. The export hub is located in the Brazilian state of Paraná, which is one of Brazil's top exporters of soybeans, corn, and other agricultural products. Once completed, the facility will be able to handle up to 8 million tons of cargo per year, including soybeans, corn, wheat, and fertilizers. Now, why is this such a big deal? Well, let's take a look at the numbers. According to a study conducted by the Center for Economics and Business Research in 2021, China's imports of US soybeans were valued at approximately $14 billion. If Brazil were to capture just a small portion of this market, it could result in billions of dollars in lost revenue for the United States. For example, if Brazil were to export just 5% of China's total soybean imports, it would generate approximately $700 million in revenue for the Brazilian economy and cost the United States $14 billion in lost sales. Of course, this is just one commodity, and the numbers could vary depending on a number of factors. But it's still important to note that even a small shift in market share could have a significant impact on both economies. It's also worth noting that Brazil's exports to China are expected to grow in the coming years due to the increasing demand for agricultural products in China. According to the USDA, China's soybean imports are projected to reach 110 million tons by 2028, up from 100 million tons in 2024. This means that Brazil has a significant opportunity to increase its exports to China and further reduce the US market share. This is the only initiative that China has undertaken to secure alternative supply chains to the United States. Recently, China and Argentina kicked off free trade agreement negotiations, which aims to reduce or eliminate tariffs on goods traded between the two countries. This includes agricultural products, which could have a significant impact on the US-China trade balance. So what does this mean for the United States? Well, it means that the US needs to find ways to remain competitive in the global market and find alternative markets for its agricultural products. The US should also work to maintain a strong relationship with Brazil and other key trading partners. By doing so, the US can ensure that it remains a major player in the global agricultural market. The US has traditionally had a strong agricultural sector, and this is something that needs to be protected and grown in the coming years. The US should focus on investing in research and development to improve agricultural productivity and lower costs. By doing so, the US can produce high-quality agricultural products that are competitive in the global market. Of course, there are challenges ahead, but with careful planning and execution, the US can maintain its position as a leading exporter of agricultural products. Finally, let me leave you with one more interesting fact. In January of 2024, China overtook the United States to become Brazil's biggest trading partner. This is a significant development as it marks the first time in history that China has held this position. In fact, Brazil's exports to China increased by 19.3% from 2022 to 2023, reaching a record $77.4 billion. On the other hand, Brazil's exports to the United States decreased by 12.6% to $30.8 billion during the same period. Overall, the relationship between China and Brazil is becoming increasingly important in the context of the broader geopolitical landscape. As tensions between the United States and China continue to rise, it will be interesting to see how this partnership evolves in the coming years. That's all for this episode. Thank you for watching. Make sure to support us by leaving a like and subscribe for more content. We'll see you next time.